It's deconverted man time. It's deconverted man time. Deconverted man time. It's deconverted man time. Hi everyone. All right. So, BCM. Why did he call it that? I don't know. Whatever. BCP. Is there irrefutable proof of God? Episode 6. Perfect Word Ministries. Can we prove the God of the Bible actually exists? Nope. You can't. So, Kevin here, we've had this little text exchange back and forth. I thought I'd read through it and talk about some logical fallacies. Now, I did a video on his video, and his complaint was that I focused all on the too long on the subjective stuff, and that I only listened to one part of the video, didn't listen to the whole video, and so I'm straw manning him. So, anyways, well, let me go through this. So, my first comment was no proof, just bad arguments, which is my typical kind of comment for apologetic videos, because there isn't proof for God, just bad arguments. That's it. If there was proof of God, we wouldn't need arguments at all. You would just show us the proof. But there isn't proof. There's just these arguments, which happen to be bad. Now, perhaps somebody has a good argument that I haven't heard. That's possible, I suppose. But every argument I've heard or read has been bad, as one or more logical fallacies. He says that's not a refutation, just an unsupported and baseless opinion. It's a statement, actually. And now you could have said it's a bald bald assertion. That would have been one thing you could have said. And I would have said, oh, okay, yeah. But anyways, then I said I made a video about this, and I said at no point did you offer anything even close to evidence, just bad arguments here. So my first thing I would have retracted if he said, this is a bald assertion. Okay, yeah, I can see that. I'll retract that statement. Your video offers no evidence, just a bad argument, or multiple arguments, since you have more than one, or suggest that you have more than one. I don't really think you do, but regardless, okay. And then he said that video wasn't a refutation. You took 20 minutes to address it. It wasn't my point. Well, I did address things that he talked about that I found interesting to talk about, and then 10 minutes on my thesis statement. Now, thesis statement, so this is an essay style argumentation then, not a syllogistic argument. Okay, but you still need supporting things for that, which I don't see. But I guess if it's an essay, that's a whole different thing. But still, it's not a very good essay then. And there are 20 minutes more in my video, but thanks for watching. Well, that's nothing more than your logical stance that if Jewish people exist, then God must exist. Saying that it's illogical doesn't make it so. So now, I made a claim about what his video or what his argument is. If this is not what his argument is, he should say, that's not what my argument is. Here's my argument. So instead, he says, you're just restating my premise, then disagreeing with it. Yeah, that's called deconstructing your premise. Here's a different way to look at your premise, and here's why that's wrong. And so because we can look at it that way, we can know that your premise is wrong. Yeah, it's called analyzing stuff. I mean, yeah, yes, this is what your argument is, correct? No? If not, correct me. What is your argument then? If I'm wrong about what your argument is, then surely you could correct me. But anyways, drawing a false equivalency between people who share a random character trait and the people group that God promised to preserve forever, and has done so against all odds for more than 3 million fails to refute. No, it's not a false equivalency, because here's an example of why your argument doesn't work. If this is indeed your argument, now that becomes very important, because I said this is what your argument is. Note that he has not yet disagreed with me that this is what his argument is. He's just saying that what I did is a false equivalency, which it's not really. I'm just making comparisons to show, X is, if X is true, then Z is true. X is true, so Z is true, right? Okay, that'd be great, but actually it's X is true because the Bible said that X is true, and Z is true, and because the Bible said, because Z is still true, then X must also be true, and that makes the Bible true. So it's very circular in nature, because basically it's like the Bible says that the Jewish people will never go away and God will preserve them, and here we are, was still around, so God has still preserved us. But if you weren't around, then you wouldn't be able to say that God's not preserving you. That's the unfalsifiability of this idea. Then, so that's one problem with it. And then the circular argumentation is that, basically you're assuming the Bible is true and then saying, well, we're still around, so I guess it must be true then. It's faulty logic. Which I say, it's illogical. I drew several comparisons to it and outlined it to show it proves nothing. It's an unfalsifiable idea. It's precept. It's presuppositionalism. So we're around because God promised that we would be around. We're still around, so I guess God must exist. Or you're just still around because that's something that humans do. I mean, being Jewish is inherited through DNA. So as as long as there's somebody with some amount of Jewish DNA out there, technically you have survived. It's very silly to think that that proves God. And then I say, until all blue people stop existing, I'm the one true God. All people have been around for quite some time and suffered at some point in history. This also reminds me of how Muslims have the unsolved challenge that it's not even a challenge. No one can write a book like this. It's not proof. It's not evidence. It's just illogical. If the people vanished, then nobody would be around to note that God failed. Well, except for non-Jewish people, I suppose. Therefore, there's no God, or God broke his promise. And I said as much. He said, nice try. You're not refuting the teaching. You're just setting up your own straw man using false comparisons and misrepresenting his premise. But I haven't misrepresented his premise. It's still the same thing. I'm just explaining why it doesn't work. You're getting it wrong. See, this is the problem when people only know the logical fallacies. They don't know the mechanics of logic. They know logical fallacies. And yes, it's worthwhile learning logical fallacies, understanding them, but you need to understand them too. But you need to learn the mechanics of logic as well. Otherwise, just knowing the fallacies, kind of like, it's like learning the rules of chess will let you play chess, but learning the strategies of chess will let you really play chess. So learning the fallacies, that's good, but you're not going to win against the grandmaster. I'm not saying I'm a grandmaster of logic. I always call myself an amateur logician, but you're not going to do very well if you only know the fallacies and don't know those very well. But anyways, so now it's not an argument, it's teaching. Well, but it's a I don't even know. That's not, anyways. But I said the premise begs the question, because it does. It's just your refutation misrepresents my premise and doesn't address my support. Your support's irrelevant. Your premise is faulty. It does I mean, I did exactly what you're saying I didn't do. Your idea. So now I say your idea is less all Jewish people are God than God kept His promise, right? So this is again he could correct me. It's assuming the bit in the Bible where God promised to keep Jewish people around is true. Hello, Gur. Hello, Dio. Oh, there's no way I'm saying that name. Anyway, so I said conclusion equals premise. This is an example of begging the question. But it gets worse than that. It's unfalsifiable. Should it not turn out to be true, no Jewish person would know because they'd all be gone. It's incoherent to its core. Perhaps you should study logic rather than the Talmud. Now, that's a bit of a jab at him, right? I'm just jabbing at him. I'm poking at him, right? Because it would be more valuable, in my view, to study logic than the Talmud. He's probably already spent a lot of time studying the Talmud. Now, granted, you can do both, but it's just a playful jab. Now, maybe it didn't come off that way. Whatever. Anyways, he said, try actually watching the whole video. I don't really see a reason to watch the whole video. I think I got it. I looked at what was said. There's really nothing for me to address. It's more the same. The argument's not going to suddenly fix itself. I said, try actually learning logic. And he said, way to devolve from straw man to ad hominem attacks, which I learned logic. Okay, so straw man. In order for what I did at any point to be a straw man, it's me doing the argument, not doing the argument. It's taking a different, weaker version of your argument and refuting that. What I'm doing is comparing your current argument to these other analogous things and saying, it's like you did this. It's like you did this. This is why it's broken. In the current format, if I'm correct, you are doing nothing more than a circular argumentation where you're saying, oh, God in the Bible said that it'll preserve the Jewish people. The Jewish people are still around. Thus, the God in the Bible still is real. And that is purely circular because you're not, you're getting the information from the Bible and then you're confirming it with still being alive. It's like, as long as you're alive, there's a God. Okay. And then when you die, well, you're dead, so you don't get to know that God stops existing, right? Because you're dead now. There's all sorts of ways to show this is flawed, but I'm not attacking those lesser arguments. I'm attacking your main argument, just making comparisons so that you and everyone else understands that the reason why it's flawed. Now, an ad hominem attack. I actually correct him on this. So an ad hominem attack would be if I said, you don't understand logic, therefore your conclusion is false. Or something like that. It's not what I said. I just said, learn logic. That's not an ad hominem. That's not even an insult. I'm just saying, learn logic. That's not an insult. It's not an insult to suggest somebody might not know logic either. I think that telling people, hey, look, you don't really know that much logic. Maybe you need to brush up a bit. Maybe you need to relearn it. Maybe you need to look at it again. Maybe you need to look deeper. I don't see that as an insult. It's like, okay, yeah, you're right. Maybe I should. I'm going to do that and come back and see where I'm going wrong here. Anyways, so I corrected him that I didn't straw man him, and corrected him on what an ad hominem is, and then he says I'm not addressing the actual content of the whole teaching. I don't care about the I only need the core. I the whole teaching. If your premise is so faulty, I can easily tell you why it's broke. You have one logical fallacy, circular argumentation. I don't care about the rest of your argument. Fix that one fallacy. I'm not going to go any further with it. I don't need to. Once you started talking about me and questioning what I do or do not know about logic, that's an ad hominem. No, it's not. A personal attack is not an ad hominem. It's an ad hominem if and only if I say you are X, where X is an undesirable thing, and because you are X, therefore your conclusion is false. It's not what I'm doing. You could be right and still not know logic. So again, I fixed it. I said, you got ad hominem wrong. Personal attack is not an ad hominem. It only becomes as I say that because X of you is true, then therefore your conclusion fails. I didn't do that. So can you just provide the syllogism of your argument? That's why I'm making this video. I want to see if he can just provide the syllogism of his argument. Because I don't want to watch his video. Okay? I really just don't. I just don't want to do it. Maybe he watched my whole video and hey, if he did, props to him. Maybe he's watching this one. Hey, props to you for doing that. But I just don't feel like it. I've done my thing with your video. I'm happy with what I did. Give me your syllogism. So now, my friends, my foes, others in the audience. Now, you guys, girls, etc., know about logic to some degree. I've already pointed out several times how he got some of these logical fallacies wrong. So I'm going to do this little miniature quiz here. Okay. Your whole discussion here is a red herring. Address the video or don't. Bye. Okay, so is my discussion a red herring? What is a red herring? And you can post in chat what you understand a red herring to be, and then tell me if my discussion is a red herring or not. And my response was, how is asking you for syllogism red herring? Which he's saying my entire discussion's a red herring. I'm not sure that you know what a red herring is. So I'm not seeing anyone in chat play my little trivia quiz, but so that's okay. So I'll explain what a red herring is. I'm hoping that you guys, girls, etc., know it. But well, let's go over it anyways, just so that Wikipedia. Yeah, Wikipedia is okay. Let's see. Merriam-Webster's better. No, that's not. That's the actual red herring. Okay, this is probably good. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see if they got it right or not. Because sometimes web pages don't get it right. Okay, yeah, and that's just good enough. This is pretty good. Okay. So they even explain the history of it, which is kind of cool. So the phrase red herring refers to a kippered herring, which is reddish brown in color and quite pungent. And the legend is the aroma is so strong, and dogs like it that they would use it to see how well it was a hunting dog without getting distracted. So the bad guy would put down a red herring and try to lead the dog astray with it, right? So red herring fallacy is difficult to identify because it's not as clear how different topics relate. A side topic may be used in a relevant way or in a relevant way. It's a big meaty disagreement of our day. Yeah, so it doesn't. Well, let's see. Okay, here's it's a distraction from the argument, typically with some sentiment that seems to be relevant but really isn't on topic. So when did I go off topic from what we were discussing, which is what his argument is about and why he's committed circular argumentation? Well, I didn't. So nowhere. So it's not nothing I'm doing. My whole discussion is a red herring is incoherent, and you don't really seem to know what red herring is, or if you do know, you don't know how to apply it. Now, a false scent. Yes, correct. So, whoopsie, what was that about? So, if I had said, something like, okay, whoops, what's interesting about God is how how he let the Jewish people suffer. Sure, he promised them all this great stuff, but boy, God has really let you guys suffer a whole lot. Why is that? Now that would be a tangential topic that's related to the topic, but something that veers off course because we're talking about God in a way, and so it's related, but it's not really the topic at hand. I didn't do that, so I didn't commit the red herring fallacy. Um, but he sure thinks I did, doesn't he? So, uh, the so a syllogism shouldn't be that hard to provide without watching his entire video. It should be rather simple to provide a syllogism that just here's my argument, and there you go, boom, boom, boom. Here it is. Because according to him, I'm getting it wrong. I don't think I'm getting it wrong though. But anyways, so the mechanics of logic. I think that is very important to understand deeper. Understanding the fallacies is important, but without understanding it's like, well, what's the point of the fallacy? So you have to know modus ponens, monus teleos, hypothetical syllogism, and adjunctive syllogism. You have to know those things, I think, first, and how those things work before really knowing the fallacies. Because if you don't know the basics, it's not going to really matter. It's going to help, but it's not going to really matter that deeply. So, is he Jewish? I don't think that they describe themselves as that way. So I don't know the answer to that question. Um, if they would, I would think, if I'm to guess, they might call themselves a completed Jew or something like that. But I'm not sure, and I didn't ask him. So you can go to the link and ask him yourself if you want. What his particular religion is kind of a side note to whether or not he has a logical fallacy in his argument. And it's not even if the argument was sound, which it isn't, it still wouldn't be evidence because arguments are not evidence. Now, people go, oh, but the premises in the argument can be evidence. By itself, if you have evidence, you do not need a logical argument. It's nice to have one, but you don't need one. If you have the evidence, that's all you need. Go, here's the evidence. Okay, we're done. You see the avatar that was drawn for me a long time ago on screen that has the green and the DM and the face that looks my face. You have evidence of that. I don't need to give an argumentation about it at all because it's there for you to examine. We could deconstruct it. We could talk about it. You can make a copy of it. You can change it. We don't need to have any sort of syllogism for it. That's evidence. But when it comes to God, God is such an abstract object that there isn't that sort of evidence for it. And the theist will assert that God is not the sort of thing that has that type of evidence for it. Although how they know that, goodness only knows. Yeah, I did. Yeah, right. Well, because he the way that he presented the argument, or his channel was more like that, something to do, it was focused on how the Jewish people have suffered throughout time. So that's why I brought up that particular bit, Jane. So what was this? Yeah, yeah. I've labeled this when somebody claims to know something that you know. I would like this, and I do not know how to make it a fallacy. It is my fallacy. I have invented it, if you will, and so I call it mind reading or special knowledge. And so it works like this, where somebody says you believe or you don't believe this, or you know this, or you don't know this, or you feel so and so way. I call that mind reading or special knowledge, because you'd have to have special knowledge to know that, of what I'm thinking and feeling. You'd have to be able to read my mind to know that. And so your conclusion is based on what you assert about what I think or feel. Oh, you really hate God. That's why you're an atheist. How would you know that? How would you know what I believe or don't believe or feel? Those are things in my brain. You do not know that. So your conclusion cannot follow. So it's a logical fallacy. But it's not in the literature of informal fallacies. So I've used it in the past in my videos during logical counters, where I would say special knowledge or special or mind reading, and even other people had done that as well. I think it counts. I think it's a valid um, um, informal fallacy, but uh, you know, whatever. That's just me. What's this? Thinking. Full thinking. Um, okay, what else can I say about logic before I wrap up or whatever? Uh, that I guess more about God. It is whatever God. If the problem is, what is God? That's one problem. So every person, even if they're in the same religion, just about has a different concept of God. I suppose you could find people that have pretty much the same concept of God, or it aligns fairly well. That's not, impossible to do that. But for the most part, different ideas about what God is something that people have. So why? What actually is God? And there's many ways to answer that. You can answer that with a religion and say, well, this religion says God is X, Y, and Z. And so if you are an adherent of that religion, then you have your answer, and nothing's going to convince you otherwise. Or if it does convince you otherwise, then you're no longer part of that religion and you don't believe in that particular type of God anymore. And maybe you believe in a different type of God, or maybe you're in a different religion or whatever. Some people have just invented whole cloth their own version of God and have said so. They're like, no, this is my idea of what God is. Or holy, they'll say, the spirits of the land, or the ancestors, or nature with a capital N. Um, let's see, it's debating in bad faith. I'm not sure what that's in reference to, Jane. Um, every time I read chat, my brain goes off. So the concept of God has been around with humans for a very, very long time. And it has evolved through time as different civilizations have arisen, different gods came and fell. And so the Greeks were around, the Romans conquered them, took their gods, renamed them, and made them their gods, and changed the stories. And for a lot of human history, that's kind of just how it was, where the conquering people came in, took over, took your gods, took your land, took your wives, killed you if you were a guy, and took your children, and that's just how it was. It's pretty messed up. Humans are, that weird in that way. You would think we would have gotten over war by now, but we haven't. We still go to war. We still fight and kill each other over disputes of who controls what and how and in what way and what resources go where and to whom and who gets to decide that, and these things that are just insane. And it's like, can't we just talk? No. Apparently not. So that's a sad state of humanity. And if there was an actual being, whatever its label is, whether its label is God or some entity that is very powerful, and it cared about humans, and it could intervene, and it wanted to intervene, and it did intervene, and it did so with the goal of helping us, and it screwed up because it's a flawed being, well, at least we'd be like, well, you tried, you know, and we would see it, because it would be a being like us, or maybe not like us. Maybe it will look very different from us, be like some alien or something, whatever. But God is said by many theists nowadays to be completely invisible. It's undetectable by any methodology that we have. Well, how do you know that that's true? The only answer they can hope to give is either some sort of argument, which is going to have a fallacy in it, I guarantee it, or simply say, well, their holy book tells them that's the case. So, and that's really the honest answer, is the reason they think that God is the way they think it is because they follow a particular religion that says that's what God is. It's not because of the arguments. The arguments all came later, after the fact. All the arguments in apologetics came way later and were a response to the current atheists, skeptics, and or other faiths at the time, because they were using logical argumentation and they wanted to be able to respond in a similar way. So St. Augustine came up with his arguments, and then later on, when evolution became a debate, C.S. Lewis actually debated against evolution. Not a lot of people know that, but yeah. So they wanted a way to formalize their argumentations, and then of course in recent decades or so, apologetics has become an actual discipline that you can learn about and you can study, and primarily Christian apologetics that dominates, but you could also do Islamic apologetics or something else. But the whole goal of it is not to discover what's true, it's to defend the idea. That's what the word apologetic means. It's to give a defense. So when I tell people you need to learn logic, it's not meant as an insult. It's because I want people, we all should know logic. We all should understand it. Some people, might understand it less than others, just like some people are really good at math and others aren't. I'm very bad at math. So, it's like, what's 1 plus 1? I don't know, 11? No, that's 1 and 1, right? 1 and 1 is 11. 1 plus 1 is 2. I just get those confused, But there's 3 ones, so I don't know. There's 1, 1, and 1. They're all different. There's I won the game, and then there's 1, like the number, and then what's the other one now? I don't remember what the other one is. Oh, like maybe there's 2 1s, and then there's then there's 3 2s, because there's 2, the number, then TO, then TOO, and then I think there's only 1 3, but then there's a couple different 4s. There's the 4 number, and then the 4 play, and then 4 when you're hitting golf ball, and words are weird. Let's see. God is okay. So let's see. God is the creator. Atheists call it God of the gaps because God is an explanation for why the universe exists. / God isn't verifiable with instruments. Well, I mean, you can believe that God is a creator, but you would need proof of that of some sort. You need some sort of way to demonstrate it. Then a statement, X calls it Z. Well, I don't know about that. Maybe some people do, but do everyone that is an atheist do that? And do you know their reasons for doing that, if indeed that's true? So this is an example of the mind reading I was just talking about, where to make the statement of the reason that they call it this is because of this. You can't know that. But there is a God of the gaps logical fallacy, and that's worth learning about as well. All right. Well, I think that I've said everything I wanted to say and then some. Hopefully, you found this interesting. Let me know in the comments below what you might want clarified, or what I should talk about next. And I'll see you then, so to speak.